The government's been in bed with the entire telecommunications industry since the 40s. They've infected everything. You can get into your bank statements, computer files, email, listen to your phone calls, every wire, every airway. The more technology you use, the easier it is for them to keep tabs on. Brave new world out there. Think we better be.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Wow. Welcome back.
It's a brave new world.
Are they keeping tabs on us, aren't they? Oh, they're watching our every move.
Meet the press. Meet the press.
Not much, because it's a secret. Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code? I wish there were something secret I could manifest. 322, secret number? There are all kinds of secrets.
Boy,
NBC.
that wrestler, he got himself in such trouble, didn't he? But it's not a secret anymore. Oh.
He once had an awkward moment, just to see how it feels. He lives vicariously through himself. He is the most interesting man in the world.
The Lamb, the Word, the Logos.
Okay.
Hey, Lenny, it's great to be back.
Back standing on the shoulders of some giants.
Oh, yeah, so many of them.
Hey?
JFK, Marshall McLuhan, Mae Brussell, Dave Emery. Can you think of some others? How about James Joyce?
Yeah, James Joyce.
Was that a good one?
Good one.
Uh-oh.
So I guess we're a bit late starting, but we thank people for listening in, and they can go to blumensteele.com and click on the live show, and that'll take them to where they can get to
Shock Talk Photos.
the photos. Yeah.
Well,
And go
tonight...
into your folder, but
Oh,
is your folder public?
I think you forgot to put it up, Lenny.
It's not public yet. Well, that's okay. They don't need it. They can listen.
Well, I can't see it. Thanks.
Go into last year's. See,
Thanks a lot.
The beauty of this show is that the icons remain the same, but the people change.
Exactly. I mean, we're just sort of doing a
Doppelganger after doppelganger
and we're
after doppelganger.
connecting one dot to the next dot, and the dots are always sort of, they're all over the place, but they all connect, don't they?
It was Dr. Beater, remember, who pointed to the secret war of doubles between the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers.
Are you talking about the clones, the Clone Wars?
The Clone Wars.
The boys from Brazil. We've got a lot of clones out there, and we've got transhumanism on the horizon.
Well, Schwarzenegger had put out in one of his last movies a really good look at the doppelganger and how they grow them and manufacture and make them.
Was that The Sixth Man? Is that the one, The Sixth Man?
Or Sixth Day.
Or The Sixth Day, and then also...
which is the day that God created life. So
exactly.
That's what the movie's about, creating doppelganger life.
And in that movie, you don't know which one is the real Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, that's right. He has two dots, a dot under every eye.
Yeah.
If there's 4 dots, it means he's the 4th double of the original.
Yeah. And there's also
they showed it all, yeah.
There's that movie Moon that shows the astronaut up in space, and he's really just a clone. He has, I think there's a whole storage of clones. They're all him.
Yeah,
and every time he expires, you've got another one.
Yeah, that's because they don't always hold the shape and can't survive as long as they would like.
So, are we going to keep calm and carry on?
Yes, let's get to the pictures.
Well,
have we made them?
Do you know what? It's really interesting. So what's going on in Toronto? I mean, it's Nissan 65994 morphing into 5995, so we're counting down 6,000 years. Now, I've noticed something quite interesting in Toronto.
Yeah.
It's keep calm and shop on, Lenny. Now, what do you think about that? What should we really be doing?
Well, if people are water skiing behind a boat and they see it's taking the fork for the Niagara River, it'd be good to get the people to turn the boat around. And if you can't get them to turn around, then Mrs. Steele, they've got to just let go.
So that's stop shopping?
Stop buying, stop selling.
Is that what that is?
Stop buying,
stop selling. So
would stop the system.
now, Keep Calm and Carry On was a 1939 propaganda poster that was, I mean, it was in the UK, in Britain, they used that as a propaganda poster. So now it's keep calm, everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's
And just
the
keep
threat.
doing what you're
People
doing.
Stop buying.
Exactly.
Stop selling.
So isn't that interesting? And I think
they
ING
don't.
Direct has a big one up there. And
We know they're not
There we
going to
go.
stop buying and selling.
no, you know what? They're all addicted.
Yeah.
It's the new fashion. You've got to get the latest fashion, Lenny. Are you going to be wearing the latest this season? Are you? No.
Well, you know, I try to remain fashionless in my dress.
You mean small A artist?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't really care, right? You can just wear whatever.
Well, of course, the fashion industry was all taken over by the ruling elite, and it became a psyops. They turned fashion into psyops.
Well, yeah.
And now that's how they create paradigms of thought.
The House of
alter
Orsini,
emotion.
the Versace line, they're all exactly what you said.
Bloodline family.
Bloodline families taken over the fashionista, fashion business.
Yeah.
Kind of goes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a Tavistock with jeans. It's a Tavistock with blue jeans. How's that?
What was that thing we saw? A word. It was Melken schon Krieg.
Oh yeah.
Was that the Welten schon Krieg? And it means psychological warfare.
Yeah, that was the first psychological warfare was developed by the Nazis.
So, do you think it's kind of still going on? Welten,
Yeah,
Welten schon, and Krieg is warfare.
through the Bormann Brotherhood.
So we've got a lot of psychological warfare going on right now. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
against the
bombarded.
masses. There's a war.
There's a huge war.
Information, media war. There are media wars going on because they use the media to alter emotions and control human conscience.
So what did John F. Kennedy say? For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion,
Yep.
on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. So is that what's happening with the election right now?
Well, yeah, it's what's happening with the economy, and I think that we should, Randy, there's a piece I sent you about Mullins, and can we play it and hear it at the same time here in the studio?
I don't think you're going to be able to hear it. No.
Okay, so let's just play it for the audience.
So
Yeah.
Len,
So
we're
let's just set
talking
it
about,
up. Let's
so
set
you
it up.
set it up. You go ahead and set it up.
Yeah, so, the big story in the news, and I don't know if this, are we behind it? It's behind us, there we go.
Okay, great.
There's the Titanic
wow.
behind us.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
There it is. I mean,
there's
it's
the Titanic.
a very sad, sad day in infamy.
Yeah, and we're gonna play off of the Titanic theme.
Okay.
Because it matches with something that we talked about years ago,
Yes.
with Eustace Mullins. And you recall Eustace Mullins worked with Ezra Pound. And Ezra Pound, and they both, Mullins wrote the book about the Federal Reserve conspiracy, and Pound was thrown in jail by by the Vatican, basically by the Vatican. Pound was thrown in jail to keep this Fed secret, the Federal Reserve secret, and it being a Vatican bank, totally secret. They put Pound, and we're now interviewing Eustace Mullins, who worked with Pound, and he's now talking about in this interview about this whole issue about
This is where Eustace Mullins actually learned about the Federal Reserve. He was pointed in the direction to go and seek the information in the archives.
Yeah, and met
Isn't that what happened?
And met
Yes.
Freddie Warburg.
Right.
Actually
Yeah.
met Freddie Warburg, one of the owners of the system. And it was Warburg who put Pound in jail, and Eustace got him released.
Was it a hospital for criminally, like for people that were
Yes.
criminals? Like, so they considered him rather insane, is that correct?
Right.
And also Eustace Mullins, at the end of his life, was hounded and eventually murdered. He died for revealing all of this, didn't he?
And he died.
Yeah,
And
he
Warburg
died.
was the one who really confided in him
Yeah.
the truth,
Yeah.
that the Titanic was exactly as Eustace recognized, a Jesuit operation to kill Strauss, Guggenheim, and Astor,
Yeah.
the men who stood in the way of bringing in the centralized banking, control of centralized banking in the United States. And of course, Mullins was the one who realized, like, I remember I said to Mullins, well, why did they have to build a ship to kill Astor? Why couldn't they shoot him with a gun? Well, if he'd been shot with a gun, then it would have given up their motives.
Okay.
Their motives would have been revealed.
Well,
So they had to do it as a perfect murder,
Right.
where nobody realized that these people were murdered. They thought they went down in a ship catastrophe, a catastrophe at sea.
So
And
it
of
was
course-
a concocted story. They had to make up a story to actually carry out the crime
To
because
carry
they
out the
wanted
crime.
to carry, they wanted to murder 3 major families that were opposed to the
wealthiest
Federal
man
Reserve.
in America,
Yeah.
who stood in the way of giving them control over ownership of America's currency and the establishment of central banking, Federal Reserve System owned by them. So that's what and of course they built the Titanic, and the story is now, I mean, it's so bold to be able to talk about. They talk about the men involved in it, and they've come forward, the Jesuits of the short skirt, as you call them.
Yes, that is correct. And they actually are politicians. They're in the arts and sciences. They're everywhere. They infiltrate. They don't actually wear a robe, Lenny.
They're covert.
They're covert.
Just as Kennedy
yes.
said.
So here we are. We've got, now if anyone is on the photos, I can't see the number on that one, but it's J.J. Astor lost on Titanic, 1,500 to 1,800 dead. That's April 14, 1914. So you've had, what were the 3 main families that were opposed to the Federal
Strauss,
Reserve?
Guggenheim, and Astor, John
Right.
Jacob Astor.
And they did such a, I mean, the story itself, the way they set it all up, the way the ship was built, it was
Yes.
built specifically for this disaster. And in fact, in 1893, a writer by the name of Morgan Robertson wrote a book called The Titan. And it was actually very much like the actual sinking of the Titanic. So many things were identical in that actual book, written 19 years before. So they have to tell you in advance, Lenny. The Jesuits, they tell you everything in advance.
This book, The Secret Terrace, written by Bill Hughes,
Yes.
says that on page 59,
Okay.
all the wealthy and powerful men the Jesuits wanted to get rid of were invited to take the cruise on the Titanic. 3 of the richest and most important of these were Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Strauss, the head of Macy's department stores, and John Jacob Astor, probably the wealthiest man in the world. Their total wealth at that time, using dollar values of their day, was more than $500 trillion. Today, that amount of money would be worth nearly hundreds of trillions of dollars. These 3 men were coaxed and encouraged to board the floating palace. They had to be destroyed because the Jesuits knew they would use their wealth and influence to oppose a Federal Reserve Bank, as well as the various wars that were being planned.
Yes.
Unquote.
Yes. Yes.
Page 59,
Just
Bill Hughes.
prior to 2 major wars. And you know what? That Captain Edward Smith, now that's a Jesuit of the short robe, they call
Right.
him. Now, he was brought on as a captain of this ship, even though he had sailed for 26 years, had several mishaps, collisions, fires, and 2 groundings. He was a Jesuit coadjutor of the short robe, as we said, or the short skirt. And also there was Father Francis Brown. Just before the ship left the port, he came on and took photographs of all the wealthy men standing at the railing, and he
And gave orders to
Yes.
the captain to scuttle the ship,
and he
to
left.
take it at high
Yeah.
speed, and they removed the red flares so that when they shot up the white flares, they were telling the Carpathia, we're partying here. So
Yes.
they had the
all
gall,
set up,
the
eh?
men who set up the murder of these people had the gall to make it so that the color of the
Wow.
flares, like they didn't have red flares. The red
Yeah.
flares to say, hey, come and get us, we've got problems. The urgent emergency signal was taken off.
And
Like the code book was taken out of Air Force One on November 22nd, 63.
that is correct.
Jesuits of 63.
They've
back
been
in
look, they've been
1912,
around
it's the same
forever.
Same gang of demons behind them.
They've been around forever now.
Yeah.
So both Francis Brown and Captain Edward Smith were working for the most powerful general of the Jesuit order. Now we've got two black popes, right?
You know, exactly.
Pachon and Clovenbach now. That's very unusual. And that's who they were working for. They were taking orders from the superior general of the Jesuits, which is a black pope. Popes, I mean. Popes.
I love your,
What?
please give me again your
What?
connection that you made, the great connection between von Kolvenbach's name and Baphomet.
Well, his name is Kolvenbach, but I've always called him Clovenbach, 'cause that's the
Right.
cloven hoof
And the cloven hoof is
of Baphomet. is the-
Baphomet's hoof.
Right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that just sort of came to me because I think you are your name. Okay, so just before Father Brown disembarked from the ship, he waved to Captain Smith and took his photographs and left. So the scene has been set for a great, great tragedy. And and you know what, when you realize what the Federal Reserve is and what it has done, the American dollar
Yeah,
is on the out, Lenny. It is gone.
yeah.
So I guess they're not going to be printing, well, it's not going to be worth anything. You're going to need a wheelbarrow full to buy some bread. I think we're back to Les Miserables.
Yeah, I think that,
Jean
that,
Valjean.
you know, there's nothing gonna stop the fall of the petrodollar. And remember, McLuhan pointed out that when something is about to disappear, just prior to its disappearance, it doesn't go disappear, but slowly, it goes up into huge hypertrophy, he pointed out. So hypertrophy happens just before obsolescence.
Okay.
So I think you'll see that before, just as the US dollar, the closer we get, you'll start to see it balloon as they try and make a bulge. Like the bulge during World War II, they're going to try and make
yes.
a bulge, and
Right.
they've got to go to war.
Exactly. Now, what you're saying is that the dollar is going to suddenly balloon like the bulge. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And we know that they have to go to war, and that's what the big plan is, because they don't
Well,
have another choice. I mean, we're in the
the
greatest
Arab-
depression there ever was.
Yeah, and with that in mind, let's play the Eustace Mullins.
Let's.
Okay, Randy,
He's
let's
brilliant.
play this about-
Mr. Mullins,
Can we hear it?
wonderful man, rest in peace.
Lenny, I have advanced a very important
We'll see what happens.
proposition in this talk,
Len,
and that is
Yeah.
should we
that
talk about
depression is being
while we're waiting,
artificially
we'll talk
maintained.
about Barak, the
It's like a
chosen
war.
pharaoh of the
It does
Freeman
not maintain
bloodlines.
itself.
Yeah, I think
You have to keep a war
Who knew
going,
not
and you have to
Joseph?
keep the depression going.
Yeah, when it comes
And
to
depression
Obama,
is being beautifully maintained
you know,
by the
to
people
be
that set it
crude
up and
about him,
instigate it in the
but
first place.
not rude. To be
Yes.
crude,
So we have
but
to
not
push
rude.
them
Yeah.
aside and
He's
get
an
this country back
Adolf
on track
Hitler with a
and
razor,
get this country to producing again.
An electric razor.
We've sat back and
black
watched the
shoes.
Japanese and the Germans produce automobiles
He's done
when our
everything that Hitler
automobiles
would
were
do.
the
He's taken
envy of the
marching
entire
orders,
world.
And
We're throwing away
he's,
everything we
passed
have.
executive orders
And we
that
cannot keep
that
throwing
Hitler
away
would absolutely have fathered and authored.
interests of the American
And
people.
he's moving into the fascism.
Right now, the American
Mrs.
people
Steele, on the other
are
hand,
the
remember,
last in the thoughts
yoke
of the people
iron
in
is
Washington
coming down.
and Wall
The macro
Street.
picture is
So,
a macro,
let's
a
start
yoke
thinking
of
about
iron.
them. That's
So
all I ask.
we're not to wrestle with flesh and blood, right? But whose spirits who are in high places, high principalities.
Well, there is a verse in Daniel 9:13 to 14, and I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron and your earth as brass, and your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land shall not yield increase, neither shall the trees of your land yield their fruits. There's a lot of drought going on. There's a lot of poverty. The curses are coming down on Jacob.
Jacob is in Jacob's trouble. And so naturally,
Yep,
we're ready to hear.
absolutely,
I
excellent.
have advanced a very important proposition in this talk, and that is that the depression is being artificially maintained. It's like a war. It does not maintain itself. You have to keep a war going, and you have to keep the depression going. And the depression is being beautifully maintained by the people that set it up and instigated it in the first place. So we have to push them aside and get this country back on track and get this country to producing again. We've sat back and watched the Japanese and the Germans produce automobiles when our automobiles were the envy of the entire world. We've thrown away everything we have. And we cannot keep throwing away the interests of the American people. Right now, the American people are the last in the thoughts of the people in Washington and Wall Street. So let's start thinking about them. That's all I ask.
Okay, we're
So
back
Len,
on.
the
Well, let's just say
National
something about-
Defense Act.
I just want to say that
My fellow citizens.
Eustace Mullins,
Fascism.
an interview that he did with me, I don't know the Steele. We pulled it out of the archives just recently. But I've got the whole interview. But that was, he points out there that how depressions are artificial. The recessions are artificial. All of it's artificial. And that's something that the Pound and Lewis and others and Marsh McLuhan fought for people to get to understand that and become aware of that. And it hasn't happened.
They don't want anyone to know, Len, because that's their power. It's called their secret power. They think it's secret. I think it's more out in the open now, isn't it being exposed?
Everything.
It's coming out in the open.
Every entity, spiritual entity that used to exist in the darkness, as we approach the end time, second coming, are going to be forced into the light. And that's why Watergate and all the corruption and all these big scandals and Enron and all the hoaxes and all the heist are all coming out in the media and surface.
Well, the Madoff. And you know, the other thing I noticed, all the sort of the sexual debauchery with
the Franklin case,
the White Horse Church, the Scarlet Harlot. And, you know, it's all out in the open now. There's nothing hidden. And these people like Dominic Strauss-Kahn and their sexual escapades and Vertical Lucy, the Italian, I mean, you know, I mean, it's all coming out.
Yeah,
they can't keep anything hidden. It's all out in the open.
The worldwide media is a gaping maw.
Yes, I like that. Now, 2012, the National Defense Act is passed by vote, suspending the U.S. Constitution. Now, isn't that what Hitler did?
Yeah.
Just before the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Okay, so the gun law, 1938, is being replicated. 1968. Okay, take away the guns.
And the ammunition.
Now, can we go to that ammunition one? Because it's an article. It was about
that arrow there. Yeah.
Disappearing. Source said feds are buying up all military surplus ammunition. What did you say, 450 million rounds?
That's Jacob's trouble. The yoke of iron is really coming down.
Wow. You can't buy it in the stores right now. And they've got the FEMA camps. Do you want to read the 11 steps to fascism?
Number 1, invoke a threat.
Establish secret prisons, that's number 2.
And of course, as we read this, I'm realizing that, yep, this is what they've been up to for a long time. 3,
They got it all.
develop a paramilitary force.
Well,
That's Blackwater.
Blackwater, right?
Surveil
Praetorian
ordinary
Guard.
citizens. They're
Wow,
doing that now.
wowzers.
They're spying on everybody.
I mean,
well, that,
we have nowhere to hide, Lenny.
and that's why it's brave, New World, because if you're out there in like a spider in the middle of its web, and now the enemy moves in, there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go. So
'Cause you're
infiltrate
surrounded.
citizens group. That's what Karl Wojtyla did.
Yep.
I mean,
Very good, Mrs.
Mr.
Steele.
Popish,
Yes,
the guy
absolutely.
that's got that ecumenical,
Yeah.
charismatic movement that he started to bring all the churches
Yeah.
together.
And when all the theater groups were raided by the Gestapo, for some reason, Mr. Wojtyla
He was
happened
never
to be
there.
not there.
Oh, is that
Somebody tipped him off.
really?
He must have been on his knees.
I know.
To, He had a cloven friend. A clovenized
So
friend.
listen to this. Arbitrarily
Yes.
detain citizens. So you're guilty. You can be taken to a prison and stay there forever.
Well, they do that
You know
in
that?
Toronto. And they don't
Forever
even
and
have
ever
the
and ever. And
US
they don't even have to tell
Constitution.
you why.
They did that in Toronto. Arbitrary detain.
And then, what's 7?
Target key individuals. Well, Loftus said they did that of the Jews back in 45 to 55. They started. That's John Loftus.
In
his book.
45 or
The
prior?
famous John Loftus
Yeah.
from ABC, NBC,
Right.
CBS News.
Wow. So that's,
Yeah.
restrict the press. So we're only getting what they want us to hear about and see, right?
Yep. Cast dissent as treason.
Number 10, subvert the rule of law. The
And number
police.
11, disarm the citizen.
There it is. The gun laws.
Right.
Ammunition is disappearing. Nazism is here.
That's right.
The
But
fifth
the fight
column.
is on because remember, in Canada now, they've made it so that you can have long guns.
That's right.
Unregistered.
I think we're a little ahead of the game, Lenny. I mean, do you think we've got a lot of guns up in those?
Let's hear it for the good
yeah.
guys.
Everybody's got them hidden in their cottages and stuff up north, right?
Well,
They're
I
all
think,
there.
I don't think there's any
Yeah.
doubt that the Chinese and Russian troops that the Pentagon have brought in to attack American citizens, I think those Russian and Chinese soldiers realize that they're up against a very, very heavily armed citizenry.
I think you're right on.
Yeah.
You got it. So we had number 5 was the disappearing ammunition. Now this was an interesting one you put up. It was talking about the different types of warfare or creeks. Let's call them creeks.
In fact, I
Krieg.
understand
Krieg.
there's a Algonquin Indian living in Beijing, driving a cab, and he has a atomic bomb in his suitcase in the trunk of his cab
Really?
in Beijing, and he's just waiting for the word from Ottawa.
Now we do know that there are quite a few suitcase bombs out there, aren't there? I heard that one.
Oh, there's a lot of them
Yeah,
in Shanghai and Beijing now too.
all over. So
Those Navy SEALs, the rogue Navy SEALs have been very busy, Mrs.
yeah,
Steele.
you know what? Like, look at that Leon Panetta, U.S. Defense Secretary.
Oh, yeah, what
Okay,
what
another.
a clod.
Yeah, and so what do you think? An advanced form of biological warfare that can target specific genotypes may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool. So they can actually target certain gene pools.
Gene types, genotypes.
Gene types, you know, so they can
Irish,
eliminate
Jewish,
Irish, they can eliminate
Spanish.
whoever they want with a certain type of biological
The Moors.
virus,
Yeah.
right? I mean, just kill
They've
whoever
got-
they want.
Yeah, genetic
They're-
weapons.
they're
They never talk about the
custom-made.
genetic weapons, but
Yeah.
everybody behind the scenes knows all
Well,
about it.
yeah. So that wow. I don't know. Do we want to talk about Obama at all? a little bit about Obama, or we already have?
Well, no, we can just go
You
back
know?
and point out that I think everything, the patterns of, there's no doubt we've been 30 days from the last, roughly, our last time on air,
Right.
which is
30
which
years.
Is, which is 30 years, really.
yeah.
So one show a month is lost.
We got a lot. We
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
30 years
'Cause
worth,
we
Len.
yeah, a lot of
So,
jumping forward.
so abomination.
Well, we've got 3 frogs, Mrs. Steele, on the high level, on the high frontier. On the high frontier, we have 3 demonic frogs.
Okay.
Stalin, Churchill, FDR. Obama, Putin, Cameron. No, Queen. Elizabeth.
Yeah, she's got to be there.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
got the 3 main frogs.
Yeah.
And you can follow what they're doing once you realize that they're there. And they've been around for millions of years.
They've been around for a long,
but only
long time.
manipulating human beings for less than
Yes.
6,000 years.
Exactly. You've got to keep it in perspective,
Yeah.
right? They've been around,
For billions of years.
but now they're doing the
only
dirty
been-
work.
Only been fooling and kidnapping human beings for 5,994
Well, don't forget,
years.
you know that Lucy guy? You know who we're talking about, the guy that falling
Yes.
from the sky. I
Yes.
closed my eyes.
Yes.
Well, he transforms himself into an angel of light, doesn't he? So he also has 5 wicked desires in Isaiah 14:12-17.
He gets
wants
his
to be-
words into the mind of the people who
Yeah.
we call rock stars.
Yes.
The people we call rock stars become rock stars, and he puts the words in their heads and the sounds.
Well, but you know, in order for that to happen, the individual has to actually, you know, go along with it to get their fame. They've got to step through that door and say, I'm going to go along with the chief commander. And we're talking about the prince of the power of the air, the chief commander on this earth.
Yeah.
That's who we're talking about. He's been given control of the earth through the air. But he's also depicted as the great musician. That's who he was originally. He was the great musician in charge of the heavenly orchestra at one point.
Yeah.
So doesn't it make sense that he would use the music? I mean,
He used the music in the movies.
yeah.
Now he finds that he can just use the cell phone towers and get past the conscious level and just alter them on a subconscious level and take full command, which I think that's what's really happened. That's the invasion of the body snatchers.
Yes, yes, yes. You've got depictions of Obama. Quite often they've depicted him with sun rays behind his head. They've shown him as a pharaoh, an ancient pharaoh that's been reincarnated. So he's here as one of the frogs. He's doing his job, and he's doing it very well.
Look at
And
the
people
Simpsons,
can't see
they're
it.
controlled by one of the media by the frogs. Look at how the Simpsons. We talked about it last time. I think we should mention it again. They turn the regular human face into a bulging eyes like
Yeah.
the frog, and
It's a
a
frog.
bulging mouth.
Well, they're
So-
reptiles, right? Sure they are.
Well, a frog is more an amphibian
An
than a
amphib.
reptile.
You know what? You're right. It's
So
kind of
they're
an in-betweenish. They're amphibs.
They're not reptilian. They're just amphibs.
So this particular, I think this one was very interesting. Now,
Yeah.
where's the number on them? Oh, it's 10. Okay, so Gary H. Kaw, K-A-H. It's En Route to Global Occupation. It's a book. Now, in the book, he gives you a really, really good idea of where everything started. Where did it start, Lenny? It started in Babylon,
Yeah,
you know, and
that's on the chart.
ancient mystery religion.
Yeah, Babylon, Egypt.
Is it still
Greece.
here?
All forms of pantheism.
Pantheism, and so that's all Babylon, mystery, religion.
Yeah, false.
Okay, so we've got it replicated here at this time, not only behind the scenes,
Right.
but in full view.
Yeah, in control of the whole religious consciousness of man,
And it's,
moving them and swaying them.
can we call
with,
it,
with
the-
lie with with pyrotechnic, electro-high-tech pyrotechnic techniques. In an age of gigantic pictorial illusionism and journalistic exaggeration of concealment.
Can we call it the New Age movement? I think that's what it is. It's the New Age movement.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's going to get together. We're all going to get along. What's that book again? The United...
Press releases from Tavistock?
No, you know the one that shows the altar? What's that book called again?
Well, it's
by
religion.
Spencer. By
it's
Spencer.
Psyops. Well, it's psyops. In other words, religion becomes a psychological operation.
Exactly.
And people, the evil demons take control.
So it's another Melton Schoen Krieg.
Yeah.
Melton Schoen Krieg.
Yeah.
I like that word.
Melton Schoen
Well,
Krieg.
please. So we've got ancient mystery religion.
Yeah, then what?
Then we've got offshoot of that is witchcraft, sorcery,
Kabbalism,
divination, spiritualism, most
Kabbalism.
occult practices, Eastern religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. You've got Kabbalism.
Yeah.
That's black magic.
Yeah, that's more
Black
false
magic.
worship.
Gnosticism.
That's worshiping rocks and stone and lumber.
So what have you got here?
This is golden calf.
Okay.
It's all different golden calves.
And so,
worshiping the golden calf.
but is that interesting? You've got the
Knights Templar.
Yeah, and the Rosicrucians.
Yeah.
Now, what stems off of the Freemasonry Illuminati?
Marxism,
Yeah.
American and European secret political societies, the international banking elite, and the World Council of Churches.
Guess who was getting them all together? Mr. Wojtyla
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes, the poison gas salesman for IG Farben Rockefeller Company. I mean, it's such a joke.
I mean, think about it.
I mean, it is really, when you start to link all these characters together and the pattern emerges, and the chief exorcist says the devil's in the Vatican, the Telegraph published that. These guys are being, there's nowhere for them to hide.
Do you know they do so many exorcisms and they make quite a bit of money out of it? Now, I'm just wondering, if you go to that church, just like I'm asking the question, why do so many people have to be exorcised? What, isn't that kind of weird?
You gotta give it to Lucy.
Here.
He knew how to fool what? He knew how to fool ecumenicism together with charismaticism is Satan's master plan of deception through which he is trying to deceive the whole world in this climactic period, Revelation 12:9.
So who's all together in that movement?
The media, the fashion industry, the music industry, Tavistock,
wasn't there
and Three
something?
Frogs.
Yes. Look at them in the front. I had to ask a question. Dalai Lama, I think just last week he got in trouble.
Yeah.
It was something about Nazi documents.
I choked. I heard the word Dalai Lama.
Didn't that come out in the paper, like all that stuff we were talking about?
That is the biggest clown act.
He's one of the frogs.
His spiritual advisor. The head of the Hitler's mobile. Who would you? Let's do a multiple choice. Which one of these men do you think was close to being Dalai Lama's spiritual advisor? 1, John Lennon. 2, Heinrich Heine. No, Heinrich Harrar, head of Hitler's mobile killing unit. That is the man who you can see pictured in our folders of Dalai Lama. His best friends are the guys who were part of the mobile killing teams that murdered the Jews in Nazi Germany.
Yes, he was.
Now, have Dalai Lama, if he's a man of peace, he certainly has some very strange friends.
Yeah, but do you remember, whenever someone says peace, peace, it's really the opposite. You know that.
Yeah. So what's really going on with the Dalai Lama?
Well,
what's
there
really
was
going
something
on
was
is
exposed this week.
He's a Jesuit Nazi
of the short robe or the
robes.
long robe or the short skirt. Okay. Now, there was an article in the paper about him implicating him in collaborating with the Nazis.
Yeah.
So it has come out. So we keep talking about prophecy strikes midnight and the light is shining on evil.
For those
it definitely is.
For those who maybe just haven't heard the shows earlier, we've always talked much about Operation Winnie the Pooh, which was Ian Fleming's rescue of Hitler and his getting Hitler out of Germany before the Allies moved in. Just like we have an article of, we talked about last show, Russian Premier Primakov said that before the Americans invaded Iraq the second time, they brought the real Saddam Hussein, the CIA agent, out to a safe house. So they brought Hitler out to a safe house. That's Operation Winnie the Pooh, and they brought him out in a yellow submarine.
And they brought the other ones out in Operation Paperclip.
And why yellow? Because Russian sulfur flares to light up the sky at night burn yellow. So if you're bringing Hitler down a river in a submarine, which is what he did, you make sure the submarine's painted yellow. And of course the Beatles used this.
They used a lot of their music
and shows more the connection between the fascism, the Nazis, and British intelligence.
A lot of Milton Schön Krieg.
And the Beatles.
Okay. So Beyond the Borders Initiative, we talked about this on previous shows over the past 4 years. Canadian border, American border. What's the flag in the middle? It's the United Nations flag. Well, guess what?
We said that years ago.
Guess what? Guess what, Len?
Yeah.
It's just the United Nations now. The borders are controlled by the UN.
Exactly. And the UN controls the Americans' Pentagon. And that was another of the biggest shocks this month. And that was that something that we've been saying for a long time. And the Vatican Bank, the Fed controls the United States. That's obvious. They got they're pumping, the last 5 years to show everybody that.
When we discuss all of this, we know that there's the dark spiritual forces behind the scenes that are replicated in the human forces here on Earth. There's a replication going on. It's a duality. In the same way, you've got the good duality and the evil duality happening at the same time. Is that correct? So with that in mind, what's happening now? I mean, are we getting closer to the end times?
Why we haven't had world war is because in the demonic world, they're just busy planning their final assault on the Most High.
So we're going to have two major assaults, one on the Most High in heaven, and then we're going to have the physical battle here at Armageddon.
Absolutely.
So there's a plan going on the spiritual realm, and there's a plan going on in the physical realm. So amass all the armies on Earth, get all the countries together, get rid of the borders. You've already got that happening in the EU with the formation of, I think what's going to happen is they said 10 kings. So eventually the 27 different countries will be amalgamated somehow into 10.
Well, the world will be controlled by 10 kings.
Yes.
And the 10 kings will get the armies of the world. The 10 kings will either own or control all the countries of the world, all the nations of the world, if they haven't turned the nation back into a monarchy. But the 10 kings will then amass the armies of the world. So every nation's military they'll have control of.
Right.
And we've seen that this week. We had the Pentagon representative testify to the Congress and said, the UN declares war, we go to war. In other words, the Pentagon is no longer controlled by the Congress of the United States, or we the people have lost control of the Pentagon, which is what we've been talking about for 30 years.
Well, the UN sanctions everything, doesn't it? The distribution of food.
And
every single thing on this earth is sanctioned by the UN, would you say? I mean, they're in control.
And who's behind the UN? Well, ever since we had a Waffen SS general,
Kurt Waldheim,
as Secretary General of the UN, every single guy is just another Hitler without a mustache and with shoe polish.
So, you said what we can do is we can stop buying, we can stop selling, and what else can we do is we can just not go to war. If they say, come to war, Smedley Butler said war is a racket. Nobody goes to war. we won't fight another rich man's war. Just don't go to war. So if all the young men in the world refuse to go,
Yeah?
do you think that would work?
No?
Okay, why? What would the ruling elite do?
They'd bring in conscription, world conscription, and force you with the fashion industry and
Okay.
the music industry and get everybody
Okay,
on board.
so we're talking
they-
fashy.
They'd
Okay,
send
yeah.
people up to the front with bathing suits.
Okay, yeah, okay.
They just move the war to where the people are, Mrs. Steele.
So,
That's what they're doing. They're moving the war to where the people are. That's what terrorism is. They're moving the world
Yeah.
war to where the people are.
well, we certainly have a lot of terrorism around the world right now. I
And
mean, we've got people being in
Look at this
Nigeria, they're
terror.
being burned to death
So the
because of their
Titanic-
religion.
The
It's
Titanic is a
terrible.
great image. How many minutes do we
It's-
have left?
No problem. Go ahead.
Well, okay. The
Where are we?
Titanic is a great image of our times. We're going into April, and April, the world's going to be once again have the Titanic on their mind. And it represents as a symbol more than just a ship going down. It also was the weapon used by
Yes.
the ruling elite to take over control of the world currency and create these wars that we've been living through. So it's momentous on that level, not just the fact that
Yes.
a boat sunk.
Right.
It's the
Right.
take control of the world. It was and that's why when people say, well, how are you telling me these
Yeah.
people would
Yeah.
spend
Yes.
$500 million to build a ship? A big ship costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
That amount of money was a child's play to them.
But-
and they would have put it out no problem because if it succeeded, it would just have been. What if Astor and Guggenheim had lived? What
Well,
if
they made it so that they didn't get on the lifeboats, and they might have shot them
They
on the
probably-
boat.
yeah.
You don't know for sure. They could have killed them.
They probably
And nobody
you
would
can
have even
bet
known.
They shot them. No one would know, and leave them go down with the ship. And who's going to do a forensic look on? There's no autopsy on Astor or Guggenheim or what's or.
So the
Guggenheim,
weapon of
Strauss.
choice was, you see,
The
I think
captain probably shot these guys.
exactly. But don't you
started
think
drinking
that
and went
when
down with the ship.
when the Jesuits, the ruling elite, the Illuminati, the powers that be, that have this secret society, which isn't
Yeah.
that secret anymore,
That Kerry and Bush talk about at the
right
beginning of the show.
now, do you not think that whatever they do has to be very dramatic? They're playing a chessboard game. It's written in the novella The Titan by Robertson. It's written in 1893. The exact identical story. They tell you in advance, Lenny. So do you not feel that this was all planned, just like the JFK assassination was? It's all planned in advance because they are being led by spiritual forces, evil spiritual forces. This isn't something that they just come up with just like that. It's planned well in advance.
The
Is
Tin
that correct?
Kings probably don't know the plan.
Exactly. And so you've
They
got
don't
these.
know the plan. They're just bamboozled and
Right.
And they're
They don't
led-
know.
No, but they say, well, you can make billions of dollars
Right.
and continue your monarchy.
Right.
But they-
So the
they
weapon
lie
of
to them.
choice was the Titanic. Would you say the Twin Tower disaster was psychological warfare, again, Weltanschauungskrieg, and they used the Twin Towers as the weapon of choice? Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Mrs. Steele.
So it's a
Well
very,
put.
very sad story, isn't it? Because things could have been so different if they hadn't murdered those families.
That's true.
No,
on
it would
that
have been
level.
so different.
Yeah. Well, but if a yoke of iron is going to come down on the people from the Most High, then certainly these things are supposed to happen. They're cursed, and you get spanked for a certain good
Well,
reason.
can we-
It stings when you get the spanking.
I know, but can we say something that's hopeful here? Because, like, you
Well,
only
he
have to
saved
do.
out of it. Jacob's trouble.
I know, but
He
there's.
falls into it, but as the scripture shows, he's saved out of it.
Right, of course, but there.
We know who saves them.
Exactly.
The most interesting man on the planet.
He is the most interesting man on the planet, isn't he?
Absolutely.
And there's nobody more interesting than that.
No.
Oh, wow. And he holds that scroll. He's the only one that can open it, Len. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to the hopeful part because I know all things will be great for everyone in the future. I mean, it's all going to be good. Unfortunately, right
Well,
now,
without-
things are tough. Things are
without
really tough.
naming them, I don't want to name them at all. I don't think we should name them. But the scripture lists certain holy days. We're not even going to mention their names. I don't think we
Yes.
should mention the names at all.
Well, can we?
I just think we should just say there's holy days coming up.
Right, right.
And that's all we're going to say. We're not
Okay.
going to say how many there are, but the beginning of the holy day season as laid down in
Right.
scriptures coming up.
It's coming
and
up.
so that
Yeah.
is something that everybody should really start to look into and put their attention on.
And the reason is very
because it's-
important to actually hold these holy days special. And there is
Well,
a
there's
Sabbath.
blessings,
There's a Sabbath.
If the hope, you ask for hope, the hope is that if you
Yeah.
get into it and you keep
Yeah.
it, then you get blessings of protection.
Exactly. And your children. Everyone gets protected.
Right.
It goes down
Right.
through the whole
It's a
family.
law.
It's a law. It's a
What's
great
that
law.
line about if an occurrence happens because of a law, you don't need a cause.
You don't need a cause. That's right.
Right?
Exactly.
Wasn't that the line?
I think it was pretty close to that.
If something happens as a result of a law, you don't need you don't need a
You don't need to have a cause.
you don't need a
I think it
cause.
has to
You
do
don't
with a
need an
cause.
excuse.
I don't know
You
or
don't
an
need
excuse.
excuse.
I don't know the exact wording, but you know what John Lennon said? Look what, he died in 1980. He had been mind control with the Beatles music and everything that they were asked to do with the Beatles invasion. And when he started to come out of his
Shock.
stupor or shock,
From realizing that they play with the doppelgangers.
right. And he did have a great conversation with Marshall McLuhan. Here's what he said. Our society is being run by insane people for insane objectives. I think we are being run by maniacs with maniacal ends, and I think I'm liable to be put away as insane for exposing that. That's what
Expressing
it.
that.
I'm sorry, expressing that. That's what insane. That's what insane.
That's what's insane
about it.
About it.
Sorry about that. I
No,
wasn't
that's
very
fine.
good.
No.
So John Lennon, 1940 to 1980.
And his last, what got him
They
into
killed him.
trouble was mind games,
Right.
exposing the Roman ice
Yeah.
cream,
He was
and
getting
Tiffany's,
yes,
and mind games. The whole
mind
video.
guerrilla warfare. He called it mind games.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
video really.
Yeah. He exposed the
them.
Jesuits fully.
Dressed as a Jesuit,
Yeah.
by the way. in
But he was
Mind
also
Games.
going to run for governor, Lenny.
Showing
I
the
think
Roman
that
ice
was the
cream, showing
last.
the fake, laughing at them.
But what's the last
Going-
straw?
Coming out of Tiffany's with a hot dog. A hot dog is
I
America.
know, but Len.
Tiffany is the Vatican. So everything he did with those images were.
I think the last straw was he was going to run for governor, just
Yeah,
like
no,
JFK
I think
Jr.
you're right.
was going to run for senator.
That was the
That was
straw.
it. That
Yeah.
was the straw.
You're right.
Everything you said,
You're right.
that was the last thing.
Absolutely.
Do you think so?
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Because can you imagine what he would have done? He would have exposed it all. But they might have assassinated him later anyways. And there was a plan to assassinate him in front of the Dakota, the same spot where they filmed Rosemary's Baby. Okay, enough said. You can look that up yourself. There he is.
You know,
Look at that.
Sherman Skolnick, the next question that I'm sure will arise is Skolnick raised the issue once that there was some doubt as to whether or not his Japanese wife was also mind control.
Yoko Ono?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, there was and Skolnick talked about that she came from she came from a bloodline family
Yes.
in Japan.
yes. Yes.
High level bloodline family.
Well, she might have been just a dupe. I don't know if she actually would have been aware of it. I know she was an artist and she had her art show up in one of the galleries, and that's how John met her. So perhaps she didn't even know it herself. You know, I mean, you don't know for sure. Maybe they just fell in love, Lenny.
Let's go to the next.
Oh.
Get through a couple of
Well,
more.
why don't you do that one? That's the Monsanto one because you know they're doing the genetically modified seeds.
Okay.
You know, and
yeah, we've talked
National
about
Sunday Law.
the
No, they're-
Colosseum,
Yep,
the Colosseum, and the Olympics in London, and the
looks
connection.
the same. Yeah.
We did that last week. Should we? Last month, I
you
think.
don't-
Do we
well,
go through it again?
I
or
don't
just
think you
leave
need
it?
to. I think it's coming up in a
Yeah.
couple of months,
We talked
and
about it 2 months ago,
yeah, and
or
it's a
3
big
months ago,
yeah,
or
yeah,
6 months ago.
yeah.
National Sunday Law. We talked about that with Dr. Meredith. People should go to
Yeah.
that.
That's in June or July, right?
Yeah.
And you've got the Triple Crown, Heaven, Earth, and Hell. Oh, this is a good one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Mrs. Steele, I think
That's a good
picture
one.
40 of 153
Here you go.
has to be one of the most interesting, important pictures because it shows General Fritz Kramer,
Right.
the man who was in charge of the bulge for Hitler, in the Oval Office with Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger.
Wowzers.
I think as a picture, that's one of the most
Unbelievable.
powerful statements.
Very powerful.
It's a May Brussels special.
Yes. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, she also died for exposing the truth. Now, go back to cinnamon and honey. I want to do cinnamon and honey. It's a cure-all for everything, just about everything. You've got an amazing mixture. Now, when we were children, we used to take cinnamon and sprinkle it on top of our toast with honey. And you could actually buy a spread like that. There must be something in it. It's supposed to help cure arthritis, cholesterol, cancer, hearing loss, infertility. It's helpful for weight loss, skin infections, insect bites, toothache, influenza, anti-aging. So get a bunch of
Sounds great.
nice ground cinnamon, mix it up with some honey, and put it on your toast.
Well,
Do you want to go to the next one
it's
here?
ruled by cartels.
There.
Would you say ultimately food cartel, the
Sure.
oil cartel? Everything's ruled the media cartel, and they're all controlled by the same ruling elite
Yep.
families.
Yes, definitely.
The people who control the currency, Rockefeller, Rothschild, all on behalf of Rome.
But I've got to ask you a question, Len. Here we've got these ruling elite families that somehow believe they're invincible.
Yeah,
Okay, are they invincible?
they're bamboozled by the frogmen.
Exactly.
The frogmen too. But
I mean-
it's all money and fame. It's greed. It's greed. Everything.
So
they're
at
lied
some
to.
point they get tripped up too because
they're lied to.
they're given promises, or from the the genie in the bottle, the jinn, he gives them these 3 wishes. Okay, wealth, power, fame, and do they get a bit of extra years in their life too? Okay, so they get these 3 wishes, but they don't realize that at the end of that, there's a downfall, because it's like the picture of Dorian Gray. They're missing something.
Jim Hinks.
What are they missing?
Well, Jim Hinks, who came to Garrison with a picture of himself in Dealey Plaza, and a walkie-talkie in his pocket. He was told that they were there to protect and to run a drill on the president.
Well, nobody
In
actually
other words,
knows, right?
He was told they were to have a guy shoot off a gun and test the president's defenses.
Wow.
To shoot wide, in effect. He was then taken and put into an asylum. And Garrison told me that Hinks told him that.
Wow.
And he was put in an asylum, and Garrison, and no one could get to talk to him.
Wow.
And Garrison, he told, it's not something just told to me exclusively, it was in the Playboy interview, but
Yeah.
I heard it from him first when I met him, and he told me that.
Wow. So
He
you're
said that Hinks came to him and said
Wow.
that he was told that they were going to shoot wide,
Right.
and the whole thing was done to test the defenses, and he didn't realize. So they lie to each guy
Well, even
about
when-
what they're there
yes.
for. Not,
Yes.
we're not going to kill the president.
Right,
They
right.
don't tell them that.
No.
We're there to shoot wide, and the
Right.
Secret Service want to test
Right.
out their defenses with the president today.
well, the whole
pure lies.
scenario has been planned out behind
Planned
the
out.
scenes. So these guys are just really dupes. They don't know what's
Dupes.
happening. It's
No.
like the general with the war games at 9/11. He had no idea what was happening.
Yeah,
The red and blue games?
yeah.
I mean, these
And if you're
guys
Admiral-
have no idea.
If you're Admiral Morrison in the sea off of Vietnam, and your guys come rushing up and say we've been attacked by bullets that strafed our ship,
Right.
what are you going to do? Go in for a forensic operation yourself to test whether or not they're telling the truth? You're going to
No.
believe what you're given.
Well, it's been created in such a way that you wouldn't even be able to change it. You can't change the spell. There's a spell cast on the Dealey Plaza. It was all planned out on a big chessboard game, right? So that spell is cast. It's going to happen. It's like when Diana was assassinated. There was
Yeah.
a spell cast.
Yeah.
If it makes any sense.
Yeah, when the
There's nothing you
authorities are
can do.
involved in the
Yep.
murder, they control everything.
Right.
They control the police. They
So-
control the hospitals. They control everything.
I mean, even if you make it to the hospital, they'll make sure you're not making it out of there.
Yeah.
Right.
You get the wrong syringe. You're
Exactly,
dead.
and that's it. Oh, they succumb to their injuries.
Yeah.
So it's all planned. If it's meant to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you can't change it.
So we've got the Titanic. Nothing
Yeah.
was going to change
No,
that. When they
no.
gave the orders to the
Yeah.
captain, and he steamed through the North Atlantic,
did.
knowing at high speed,
Right.
knowing that would do the ship in. So it was like they didn't have to blow it up. Was there a bomb on board? Probably.
But he knew he was going to die.
Absolutely.
The captain knew
He
that.
was
I
a
mean, he
fourth
took the oath, right?
The fourth oath Jesuit.
So that means you're giving up your life.
Give your life.
So isn't that
For
sort of
Lucifer.
remind you of the secret terrorists?
Just like
I
the
mean,
Muslims give up
don't
their
they go
lives
around with
for
bombs
16
on their?
virgins.
Yes, 78
They-
actually.
Is it 78 virgins?
Yeah,
You know, all
78.
these Muslims, all
Yeah.
these guys
Yeah.
blowing themselves up there, they all really believe they're going to go to a harem, a bordello,
Wow.
and have 16 virgins, right? That's what they say.
I don't really think it's going to be that
That's
much
what they
fun. There'll
tell
be a
you.
lot of fighting.
78?
78 or something. I don't know. I'm just 76 trombones. I don't know.
It's got to be. It's now with inflation. It's got to be 322
Maybe.
virgins, right?
Wow. I don't
It's
know
been
about
hard,
that.
It's been hard bringing in outsiders to blow themselves up, so they've got to give them not 78. Now with inflation, it's got to go to 322.
So can we? I don't know. It's been a very interesting 30 years that just passed, and I mean, if you really look around and see what's happening, you'll realize that it's all Jacob's trouble, and all you have to do, it's really simple, Nell, isn't it? Just blow the dust off that Bible and read it. Follow the holy days, follow the Sabbath, and that's it. It's really easy.
You're over an hour, doesn't matter.
Go now.
We are?
Yeah, we're finished now.
Take your time.
Oh,
Hey, Len. Len,
Okay,
have fun.
All right.
Have fun. So it's pretty easy, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
easy. It's easy. Do you think?
Yeah,
No?
I agree with you.
Do you think so? Yeah.
Actually, it's very hard.
No.
Don't you think?
Well, you know what? I shouldn't. What I
Most
meant.
people don't do it, so it's really very
Well,
difficult. It's the hardest thing in life.
Well, you know what it is? It's like if you're chained up and you're bound, you don't realize when you're free. You think you're free, but you're really chained. Because if you're addicted to alcohol or drugs or pornography or whatever it is, you're chained. You're in chains. You're not free. So what's freedom? Answer that. What's freedom, Lenny?
Tell me. Freedom?
Well,
Immortality.
Immortality, you know, I mean, is the new reality, really. Immortality is
immortality
the
is
new
the ultimate
reality. And
freedom.
I want to go through that immortal portal. Do you want to go through
Well,
that
that's what-
immortal
that's-
portal?
That's
where I want to go.
It starts with understanding and looking into the holy day, which is coming
Yep.
out, right?
Yep. Yep.
Which is all about like humility and
Yeah.
foot washing,
Yep.
things like that.
Yep.
So that's where it starts with
And-
foot washing.
And giving up the leaven. The leaven is the stuff that grows inside of you. So you give that up.
11 pictures.
Yeah.
Commandment breaking.
Sure it does. It's all the bad stuff. You don't want that stuff growing, so you get rid of it.
Law breaking.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
The statutes and the laws, right? And they're very simple. And actually, they're there to protect us and keep us safe.
So if something
You know?
happens as a result of a law,
Yeah.
you don't need a cause.
You don't need a cause. That's what it was. That's excellent.
Yeah.
You don't need a cause. Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah.
And that's what you don't need a cause for this.
No.
And it was all set in motion, right?
Yeah.
At
Calvary. Yeah, it was.
And you can't change the world.
Yeah.
That's the biggest lie that
Exactly.
Lucy's sold to everybody.
That is the big lie,
It's
isn't
all
it?
been set in
Can't
stone
change
right
the world.
from Calvary to Mount Olives.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, and that's the way it's been. For just like, isn't that how Walter Cronkite?
Yeah.
Isn't that why Walter Cronkite used to go? And that's the way it was, because
He did, didn't he?
What he was basically saying is,
Yeah.
you can't change the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't change
Yeah,
it.
I think you're right.
You're going to be told you can,
Yeah,
but no, you
No.
can't change it.
yeah. I think Michael
You will
Jackson
in the
figured that
future
out.
be able to, but not right now. If you win, you can change it.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to going through that immortal portal, and I think wisdom is knowledge.
See, pinky in the brain. Everybody wants to try and take over the world. The
Yeah.
ruling elite
Yeah.
are pinky in the brain. They're insane. Because if
They
anybody
are.
if anybody was not sane,
Yeah.
they wouldn't want the responsibility of running the world. Any
Exactly.
sane individual
Yeah.
would not want to be the
No.
president of the
No.
United States.
Absolutely.
Anybody
Wouldn't
who
wanna
wants to
be.
be the president has to have a touch of insanity. You've got to be more than a touch of
Yes,
insanity.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's how we know these people are insane.
They
Who
are.
wants to run Toronto?
Oh,
Kook by the name of Ford. Some guy is a kook by the name of Ford. You can just see it, right?
oh, he's quite a character, Lenny. I don't know. He wants to stop the gravy train. Do you remember that? And he doesn't. He wants the subway, and he wants to get his own way. He kind of reminds me of a hillbilly, doesn't he? Kind of like a hillbilly.
He looks like a Hitler with a razor, with an electric razor, and an expense account at the keg.
Okay, at
And
the
a
keg.
free food at the as he's got a free pass at Kentucky Fried Chicken. He's Hitler with a free pass at Kentucky Fried Chicken and an electric razor to shave off the mustache.
Okay, so we know that the secret
And
terrorists
Obama's just
are there out there among us. Is he one of them?
an Othello.
Is he one of them?
Who, Bill Hughes?
Is Ford a secret terrorist?
Ford?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was
Yeah.
just kind of wondering. I looked at this book and I thought, I think he's one of them.
He's part of the Borman Brotherhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in disguise.
In disguise.
Because that's what they do. They bamboozle you and hoodwink you because they look like they're benign, sort of, but they really aren't.
He's Schultz.
He's Schultz.
He's Schultz from Hogan's Heroes. He ought to put a Nazi helmet on make him, and that, like Schultz.
Yeah.
And he goes around going, I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing. No, I hear nothing, I see nothing,
I know nothing.
I know nothing.
That's right. And Nell, I think we should sign off soon. It's been, I mean,
Sign off.
we've talked a lot about the Weltanschauungskriegs around the world, and you know, I mean, if people just turn the TV off, and you know, you can make a difference. You just start to read, find out what's happening.
Thanks,
You know,
Mrs.
take
Steele.
heed.
I'll have to figure it out. I wouldn't do
Yeah,
anything,
you know,
let them
no,
figure it out
yeah,
themselves.
you know what? Connect the dots.
Start connecting the dots.
Connect the
yeah.
dots.
Take the technique of the suspended,
Suspended
judgment.
judgment.
Organize ignorance for discovery.
Yeah.
Get rid of the self.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I like it.
And I go for the millionth time to forge in the smithy of my soul the uncreated conscience of my race. Good night, Mrs. Steele.
Good night.
Individuation, conformity, delusion, complete genocide, mediocrity, senility, enslave, overthrow. offshore, egg, retail, philanthropy, liquidation, none, second-hand,